All right, guys, welcome to everyone. It is another Tuesday at 2 Town Hall with KYSHAPE. For those of you that have not been here before, welcome to your first one. For our returnees, welcome back. I am Robyn Richardson. I am KYSHAPE president, and I wanted to give you some information that's coming up for things for us, just to keep everybody in the loop. The first thing that I would like to talk about is on Thursday, July the 16th, we're going to have a online advocacy day in conjunction with SHAPE America. So it's called a National Backyard SHAPE Advocacy Day. So across the country, schools districts are developing reopening plans for upcoming school year. And while these plans are going to look very different from district to district, there's one message that we want all local leaders and administrators to hear loud and clear, is that health education and physical education is essential for students' physical, mental, and social emotional health. And now more than ever, because it is vital to prioritize students' health and their well-being as we think about reentry into schools. So please join us on July 16th for our online Backyard Advocacy Day. This is your chance to voice your views to local representatives and ensure that health and physical education stays at the forefront of back to school planning. So here are 3 ways you can help. 1, get educated on your state and district's reentry plans. So contact school boards, look plans up online, figure out what has been released already in your area. Email a letter to your superintendent or your school board members. And 3, you can advocate on social media by using the hashtag SHAPE Advocacy. So there will be more information on our page, on our KYSHAPE page under the Advocacy tab, as well as information on the SHAPE website as well. And so we'd like for you to participate in that. There will be some more information and some more incentives for you to participate in that coming up in the next day or so. Again, that is Thursday, online advocacy, backyard advocacy for reentry into schools, and making sure that you are contacting your administrators and school boards to know that PE and health are the most important at this time. So next on our agenda, I get the pleasure of introducing Ms. Jess Lawrence. Jess is a former middle school health teacher and is now director of Caring Guidance. Caring Guidance helps support the KYSHAPE Health Education Cadre pro bono and is a valuable partner in the work that we're striving to do around health education in Kentucky. So Jess is going to take it from here, and she is going to introduce our health education cadre and explain exactly how this came to be and what it is. Jess?
Thank you, Madam President. Appreciate it. Hi, all. It's great to see so many people logging in to today's town hall. So many of you know that I used to live in Oregon and helped run a health cadre when I was at the Oregon Department of Education. And when I moved to Kentucky, we really saw the need to have a health education cadre here as well. So I helped coordinate it and started that a couple of years ago. You can see on the slide, we have representation from all over. We also, our cadre represents elementary, middle, and high school health educators. Some of them teach health and PE, but all of them do teach health. And what do? So we were really established to build capacity of professional development for K-12 health education teachers around the state. We don't have a massive budget, or, we're not sponsored by a ton of organizations or businesses, but we get together mostly on our own time and say, what do health teachers need right now? So that's kind of what we do. We've offered a more robust health ed programming at the Kentucky SHAPE Annual Conference and the summer PDs as a result of the cadre. We'll offer documents and resources and curriculum processes like we're sharing today. We all got together to plan today's webinar. So Jess Napier will be leading most of it, but you'll see that cadre members will be taking part of different aspects of today's webinar. If you're interested in being a part of the cadre, keep an eye out for applications in the future. We hope to continue to expand, especially our geographic reach. And I know that the PE Council for Kentucky SHAPE is looking into creating a PE cadre as well. And I would say that if your region or school, your district needs professional development or has some specific health education needs, like let us know, email us. My email will be at the end, because it's possible that one of our trainers can come and provide support and technical assistance to you. So might as well ask. So that's a little bit of who we are. And I do want to call out that we do have Jo Geddes, is the Kentucky Health Education Teacher of the Year, and I'm going to move into introducing Jess Napier, who is going to really kind of lead us in. This was her idea for this town hall today. So today's town hall is going to be led by SHAPE America National Health Education Teacher of the Year, Jess Napier. And as of last week, Jess was the middle and high school health education teacher for Lee County Schools. So that's in Eastern Kentucky. And she's taught health education for 18 years, even though I told her today, did she start teaching at 4? Because she looks so young. And yesterday, she started her career as an administrator. She was named assistant principal of Lee County Secondary School, so both the middle and high school combined. And I'm just thrilled that she got that position, because we need more health and PE teachers as administrators, because they just really value our content areas. And just a quick story about Jess. I came to Lee County about a year ago to work with her under a grant through the Department of Education. And we worked on mapping an alignment for Lee County to really develop a scope and sequence for their secondary health education program. And shout out to her mom, who brought us homemade lunch. It's like never that I'm like doing professional development and someone's mom brings us like this amazing homemade meal. So I love Jess. I love her family. And I'm thrilled to introduce her. So Jess, let's make sure you're unmuted and take it away.
Oh, thank you, Madam Coordinator. First of all, if you are a health educator out there and you don't know Jess Lawrence, you need to get to know her, because I met her a few years ago, but since I've known her, I don't think I've told you this, Jess, but I have grown so much more exponentially than I could have ever on my own as far as my career goes in health education. I'm serious. So Jess is on the front line. She's consulting all over the country, and she could always use your input, and you can always learn a ton from Jess. So Jess, kudos to you too for really just growing this health cadre from the ground up. And we've been together for a couple of years now, and it's been amazing. Okay, so thanks to Jess. I'm going to jump in real quick here. I'm just going to dive in, as our title says, to what our cadre and myself think that health education can look like for us in 2021. Some objectives that we've lined out for today. First of all, I hope that you can say these at the end of our webinar, and they would be true. I can explain how to develop a skills-based unit using the backward design process. I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. I can explain the health education reentry recommendations from the SHAPE America document. And for us Kentucky folks, I can explain the health education reentry safety expectations from the Kentucky Department of Education. So what we did when we came together a couple weeks ago, we took a look at the SHAPE reentry document. Okay, there's a specific part for health education in the reentry document. If you haven't looked at that, I highly encourage you to sit down and take a really good look at it. There's a couple strong pages in there on health education specifically, and it starts off with just describing the CDC's guidelines for a safe physical environment. Then it goes down that same page, and you know, SHAPE America tells us it's best practice to include a skills-based approach when teaching health education, and they list all the skills. And then they dive even deeper. And that's where this handy dandy chart over here came from, the chart that right there that's on the right. And basically what SHAPE America did was they looked at those skills, the National Health Education skills, and they selected 4 that could be priority right now for us Then if you look at the column over on the far right, they also selected the content pieces relating to our specific challenging times that will fit into those skills. And then if you look at the center column there, they even went as far as to show us lessons and activities that could teach both that skill and those content pieces. Okay, so what we did when we came together, we said, hey, why don't we divide these up and we can develop some units based on those activities, and then teachers could have those to start their year off with. So I really think that in conjunction with our Health Moves Minds mini lessons that our PE people have developed and our Health Moves Minds people on Kentucky Shape, I think we have a really strong start. And in addition, our PE cadre, it's in the development, but I feel like it's already there. They came together last week and they put together some amazing lessons based on the same reentry document that we're looking at that they're going to release here in a few days. So I really feel like as far as health and PE goes, we are as prepared as we possibly could be in this particular time. Now, might that change tomorrow? It might, but we'll feel more prepared, just in the webinars like we're doing today and the work that people are putting in this summer. So that's my 2 cents. That was a little off topic. So we looked at the Shape America reentry document to get some ideas. We also looked at Kentucky's safety expectations. Now, if we share this slides presentation, each of these documents is linked to the photo. So if you need to look at that, just click on the picture. I'm not going to because I pulled out the specific parts that I'm going to talk about. But for the Kentucky safety expectations, the document goes through the same CDC guidelines and how our classrooms can be made safe, how our hallways can be made safe to the best of our ability for those of us who are going to be in person. But I pulled out this particular part where it mentions how health education can be included in the education of our students for those safety expectations. So if you look at those specific things there that are listed, they're very similar to the ones that were listed under the self-management row on that previous table. But it's things like hand washing, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, healthy nutrition, physical activity, things like that. So I took, and our cadre did this for their units as well. So I took the bottom row of the Shape America chart, which includes self-management as the skill to be taught. I looked at the particular activities and I clicked on the daily 3 activity, and it looked to me like it was more or less a schedule or a journal that students could follow each day. So there were 3 types of activities, a mindfulness activity, a physical activity, and then a reflection activity that they can do every single day. And to me, that's important because kids need consistency and they need familiarity to the best of our ability. So if we can provide that in our curriculum, I think it's a positive. So I took that particular activity, but I thought, what would that look like if I made it into a complete unit? Just stretched it out rather than, one particular activity, let's make it an entire unit based on self-management, based on those specific content pieces, and based on the Kentucky safety expectations. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about now. I'm going to just tell you the process that I followed, and we all followed the same process because our Kentucky Health Educator of the Year, Jo Geddes, she developed a document. Are you guys seeing that? Just shake your head. You seeing the document? Okay. So Jo Geddes developed a unit template that you can follow to follow the backward design plan. Also, of course, you've probably seen this book, Sarah and Holly's book, The Essentials of Teaching Health Ed. Jess got this for a health cadre, or Kentucky Shape did. I don't know if Jess, I don't know. You'll have to clarify that, Jess. And then lesson planning for skills-based health ed, also Sarah and Holly's book. Jo based this particular document on, this one's huge, Ray Connolly's book, Skills-Based Health Ed. So those are 3 really good resources if you're looking to develop a backwards design plan. Those are good places to start, or you can just follow Jo's unit template. She included all the steps. So when you're designing a unit based on backward design for health education, a lot of people agree on this first step, and that is to find some functional data that tell you what your students' needs are. So for this particular unit, okay, I looked at the 2019 YRBS data. So if we share this document, you can click on that link. I think that will take you directly to Kentucky. So if you're not from Kentucky, you can just go to your states from that same website. And I looked specifically at data pertaining to like activities that would support immune health and the comorbidity data that put kids and adults at more risk for developing more severe cases of COVID. Now, you could also have looked at the COVID data itself. It's changing from day to day. We know that we're seeing a spike right now, but I chose those things. So I looked at those, and that's what I wanted to focus on within the skills. You could also, at this point, when developing a unit, take a look at some student surveys. KYSHAPE America has developed, along with that reentry document, they also have developed a student survey that looks phenomenal. It asks some about demographic information. It asks some questions about technology and their connectivity issues, how many people are in their household, how many devices they have. But it also asks about their interest and their needs when it comes to health ed. So student surveys are really good to include in that functional data when you're trying to assess the needs of your students and your community. So that was the first step. Okay, after I did that, I took a look at my standards. So I looked at Kentucky standards and I looked at national standards, and I selected both skills and content. So of course, you know, the first skill for the national health education standards is content. So I looked through there and I chose one particular strand of that standard, the performance indicator. And then I also did the same thing for skills. So skills and content are included right there. You can separate those out if you want on your particular unit. From there, I developed my objectives. And then from there, now this is not required on any unit template, but of course, any given school district is going to ask teachers to include different types of things. My particular district asks for essential questions. And so I put that on here. And I like to base my essential questions, which are down here below. I like to base my essential questions on health behavior outcome from the HECAT, simply because they are very specific and they're broken down in a way that's easy to reword into a question. So I included both knowledge and skill expectations for personal health and wellness from the HECAT and developed some essential questions. These are the questions that I really want my students to be able to answer and to be able to do by the end of the unit. Mary Connolly, of course, is big on including SEL competencies. And of course, you know, we are now, especially when we come back, we don't know what our kids will have gone through, and any social, emotional, or learning skills that they can develop will be super important, especially when we get back to school, whether in person or online. Kids are going to need to know how socially and emotionally heal from all of this. So I've attached the CASEL core competencies. This particular unit is going to develop self-management, and it's going to develop self-discipline when it comes to certain health behaviors. So once you've done that, and you don't have to do all that, really it's required, whatever your district requires. The functional data piece is super important, and of course you want it to be aligned to the National Health Education Standards. Beyond that, up to this point, I think your district will probably dictate what you add in there and how it's organized. So once you have your standards, once you have some objectives set, once you have your functional data, the backwards design model has you actually develop the performance assessment first. However you're going to assess your students, develop that first. And then your lessons can then be developed based on that performance assessment. So here's an example of this performance assessment. I've developed a couple of assessments for this unit, depending on which way you want to go, and I'll talk about those options later, but here's the one that I want to show you first. So you are a researcher for the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, who is investigating risk factors for COVID. Your investigation begins with a data analysis of self-recorded health behaviors for one individual, you. Analyze your own behaviors by looking over your journal entries for the past week, which they will do in the lessons that I'm going to show you. Give yourself a point for each day you did the following. Wash your hands at least 3 times a day, accurately wear your mask when recommended, and remain socially distant when recommended. Complete your investigation by reporting a summary of that person's behaviors and recommendations for the individual. So here is what they're actually going to turn into me. You may type your report in Google Docs and turn it in on Google Classroom. You can record your report on a voice memo and upload it to Google Classroom, or they could email it to you as well. Or you can video your report and upload it to Flipgrid. So I think choice is important when it comes to performance assessments as well as instruction. So as much choice as you can give them, I think it's super important. And then beyond that, you develop your daily lesson plans, okay? And that's what I'm going to show you. Here's how it's organized on the template that I would turn into my principal. Like, here's my unit plan. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I would actually teach this unit. And when I was developing the activities, I wanted it to be so that I could teach it either in person or I could teach it to students at home, because I want my instruction for those groups to be aligned as much as possible. Okay, so that I was keeping that in mind as I was developing these. So here's what I came up with. If you're involved in the Bitmoji craze, you've kind of seen these develop. If you're not, let me give you a warning, they become so addicting. But you just use a Google Slides and you basically put your units into Google Slides. Okay, so here we are at Lake County Middle High School. And here are the 3 main health behaviors that I want them to learn how to manage right off the bat. Now, these aren't the only health behaviors they're going to work on, but they are the 3 main ones. So washing your hands, social distancing, and wearing your mask. So when you click on the sign, it brings you to a hand washing page. Okay, I have a link down here at the bottom where it says click here. This is the assignment that they're going to complete. Okay, now each of these assignments is in the same format, because remember, consistency and familiarity is something that they're going to need from us. So if you look at this assignment, there's so many aspects to it. I love the way it's set up. So you can see that here's their work. Okay, here is what they're going to turn into me. Here are the activities and the formative assessments they're going to do, and they're going to turn into me. Here is a personal check-in section, okay, where I can check in and see how they're doing, whether they're sitting in front of my face at school or they're sitting behind a computer at home. How are you feeling? What are you grateful for today? And then how can I help you? And you can change those any way you want. I leave those same 3 questions because I want consistency and familiarity. And then down here is a healthy habits checklist that we are actually going to use in that performance assessment at the end. So I make a point to let them know I'm not going to grade you on how many of these you're going to do. You're not. This is just a monitoring tool for you to help you monitor your health. So they just check off those, or highlight. I think I tell them to highlight it. Yeah, tell them to highlight the ones that they did that day. If you look more closely at the work, I put my I can statement up there because I like for students to know exactly what I want them to be able to do at the end of this lesson. Then I took the steps of accepting responsibility and I broke them down. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. For the first 3 days, I'm staying on step number 1 because I want them to accept personal responsibility for washing their hands. I want them to accept personal responsibility for wearing their mask. And I want them to accept personal responsibility for staying socially distant. Okay, so the question kind of remains the same for the first 3 activities, but the behavior, the health practice is a little different. And then I give them some fun things to do. So this one says to go back and to click on the speaker. There's a cool video. There's an assignment. That assignment actually asked them to develop a 20-second song based on a familiar tune, but to create their own lyrics. So there's a cool video that I found that play some pretty cool songs. Of course, it's not going to load, but it's pretty neat. Just be careful if you use this one. There is a song. Okay, so you get the point. There is a Britney Spears song in there that shows a couple making out, so if not kissing. So if you don't, if you have younger kids, definitely find a different video, and you might want to watch it and filter it before you show it. But yeah, one activity, I just want them to create a song in their head on their own to sing when they wash their hands. And then if you click go back, it'll take you back to this original one. Same thing for social distancing. The assignment is listed up here. They click on that. Same thing for wearing your mask. Okay. And one of the assignments asked them to watch this really cool video I saw where I think it was PBS, did experiments on mask wearers and non-mask wearers. And of course, their assignment is right there as well. So if you want to extend beyond just the COVID stuff when in this unit, that's perfectly acceptable as well. I showed this to our instructional supervisor today, and she said, well, why don't we use those first 3 for every student? So our students are gonna have to come into a classroom as soon, and yours will too, I suppose, as soon as they get to school. Okay, they're in there with their teacher, so what are they gonna do? Well, that would be a good time to have school-wide working on these health behaviors or Health Moves Minds, something that we want to implement school-wide that could benefit everybody. This is just an extension of the unit. If you look over here, here's an agenda that students would follow. And then this is more or less half a unit on a slide. So if you click on journal activity, that's the actual work that they're going to do. And it's set up very similarly, almost exactly the way the other ones were, but the work is different. Okay, again, familiarity is super important. So this relates to various health practices rather than just those pertaining to COVID. These, as you can see, physical activity, stress management, time management up here at the clock. I had a student when we were doing virtual last time. She asked, that question I asked them, how can I help you? She said, can you help me get on a schedule because I overslept and I missed a Google Meets. So that gave me the idea to put a time management activity in there as well. So I told you that we would have another assessment option for this. And this one is something I came up with long before COVID. But this assesses personal responsibility in a way that it gets them to identify a healthy practice, which is, in this case, it is first aid procedures. So they select one of the movies that they're going to produce. Each one of them is a different first aid procedure. Okay, then they research it, which is in the skill progression for personal responsibility, and then they demonstrate it. And they turn into me a movie that they produced of them having to perform that particular first aid procedure on a prop. It's very important. I tell them not to perform it on a human, especially CPR first aid. But here's what this performance task looks like. So each one of them, are graded by the same rubric. They're doing the same thing, but they're just getting some choice in the topic or the skill that they want to learn about. Okay, so I had somebody ask me when I was talking about this before, okay, so how does this work with students? How do you get it to them? How do you deliver it? How do they turn in assignments to you? Well, I just post this Google Slides on Google Classroom, and I create a copy for them. Okay, now my middle and high school students, since we've worked with Google Classroom for a while, they know that when they click on a document and they can make a copy and attach it to their assignment and turn it in. So if you have 6th grade or elementary school students, you might need to teach them how to do that if they don't know already. But it's all on there on Google Classroom for me. Previously, when we did virtual teaching, so a lot of my students didn't have internet. So those assignments and even the performance assessments that I showed you were really easy to print out to them. Now, we're not going to do that coming up in the fall, but if you have students who don't have internet and they need paper copies, those particular assignments can be printed out as well. All right, so that's my idea of how health education could look here in the future. Jess, can I turn it back over to you?
It. You can turn it to me, or you can actually turn it over to Jo Geddes, which you might have to do since you're a host now, Jess.
Okay.
Go up to participants and put in Joe's name, and then Joe can share the high school example.
Okay.
Jordan's going first, so add him first.
Oh, Jordan. Okay. Hey, Jordan.
Okay, I should be able to share my screen.
Let me stop share, Jordan. Try that.
All right, awesome. Okay, so first of all, Jess, that was great. Thank you for leading us through the template that Joe came up with. Joe and I worked together to come up with a unit based on one of those activities that was previously mentioned in the SHAPE Reentry document. So the activity that we started with is called Trash or Trust, and it was an activity that forces kids to access valid and reliable information on the internet related to COVID-19. So if you've been on Facebook or Twitter lately, you probably encountered some information that you question if it's true or not. And so we came up with a unit to address some of these issues that we have around information. So we started with COVID-19 data. We sourced this from the New York Times, and like Jess said, these numbers are constantly changing, which I think makes for something interesting to cover with high schoolers. You could talk about how the COVID data changes. You could talk about spikes in the data. You could talk about hotspots around the country and why those things happen. You could talk about testing and percent positive rates, but this is the data that forms the foundation of our unit. It is what makes us very interested in making sure we cover personal health and wellness with our students. The next piece of this template is the National Health Education, the content standards. So standard 1, comprehending concepts. The main things that we want to cover with our students at the high school level, obviously preventing the spread of the disease, so covering transmission, direct and indirect spread, talking about treatment options, which also would include covering symptoms of the disease, and then health screenings, immunizations, talking about frequent testing, maybe debunking some of the stigma around testing, and that goes to like sexually transmitted diseases as well. But I've heard a lot of adults who are like, I'm not going to get a COVID test. I don't want to find out if I'm positive or not. And I was, obviously that's an important conversation to have with adults and kids. It's important to get tested and know your status before you get out and you're around people living your life. NHES skill standards. So this unit actually covers 2 different skills, which is okay. We like to focus on one, but as we developed this unit, we found another activity in the SHAPE Reentry guidelines, which was a public service announcement that fit in really well with what we were doing. So we have 2 standards here, standard 3 and standard 8. Standard 3, accessing valid quality information. And then standard 8 is advocacy. So helping students learn how to share appropriate and persuasive messages and working with others to reduce the spread in their local communities, we thought would be really important as we start school off this year. If our students are really on our team for helping reduce the spread, that would be super helpful. This is my last part, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jo. But we looked through the Castle SDL core competencies as well, and we found that the two major ones that we could fit in this unit are responsible decision making, specifically identifying problems, analyzing situations, solving, evaluating, reflecting, and that personal ethical responsibility, and also social awareness. We thought perspective taking was very important for this unit around COVID-19. Kentucky isn't one of the top spots in the world where COVID-19 has gotten super bad, but it's important for them to be able to put themselves in the shoes of someone who lived in New York when this was really bad, someone who is living in Florida or California right now, or Texas. We thought perspective taking would also be a really important SEL skill. Jo, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk assessment and instruction. Do you just want me to keep sharing my screen and I'll kind of follow along with you?
That works. You also have the technology one?
Is it in this document we have?
No, it's a separate one, but we don't need it yet.
Okay.
I am Jo Geddes, so thank you, Jordan and Jessica. So with the whole skills-based health, we want to, it's called backwards design. So you want to create your assessment first. And you want your assessment to make sure that it's aligned with the skill standard and the content standards from standard 1. So for this example, we created a PSA that the kids are they're going to be assessed on their advocacy skills. So once you have your assessment made up, then you have to go through and see, what do my students need to learn that through the standard 1 and the standard 8, that they are going to master those skill expectations. So Jordan and I went through, like we looked down here under instruction, and we listed like activities for students to do and like content that needed to be addressed. And notice like the skill steps are in there. So with skills-based health, it is imperative that the students practice the skills. So you can break down the skills each day, like step 1, step 2, step 3. You have to practice it. You as a teacher need to model what that skill would look like. And then students have to practice. They might practice it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but they have to practice it, and then you give reinforcement for that. But they have to actually do the skill. They can't do a skill on a worksheet. Like they have to like practice, this is what advocacy looks like, here's what assessing information looks like. And it's really important to teach all those skills in your instruction. After you have all your ideas like for instruction down, then you create your lessons. So if you scroll down some more, then you figure out how many lessons this is going to take for this unit. So I'm in high school, I have blocks, I have 90-minute blocks. So we figured we could teach this in 2 weeks pretty much, with every other day, A-day, B-day block schedule. So then you would pretty much go back and you would pinpoint all your instruction ideas and turn those and create lesson plans of how you would teach that. And then everything that you teach will go back and be reinforced when the students do his or her assessment. So we were going to see, like brainstorming wise, like in the chat, if you have any ideas on lessons, like what this is, if you scroll back up, sorry, Jordan, I'm being bossy. If you scroll back up here and see under the, like this is instruction. So like maybe you have a great like disease prevention activity already that you teach for content. Like what lessons could you use to teach this instruction down as like an actual lesson plan? Does anybody have any ideas that they want to share? Everybody's being really shy. Anybody? That's okay. We'll skip that part. But so anyhow, so you just wanted to like break it all down. And I bet a lot of us, because we've been taught content so long since we've been teaching, you probably can already use some of that activities already. You have to make sure you go in and you embed all the skills to teach the skills. Because that I don't think is what we are used to doing in health education. So then you might say, all right, this is great, but how am I going to teach this in the fall? Like, we don't know what's happening yet with school, like if we hybrid, virtual, remote learning. So we created a technology document that we'll find a way to get it to everybody here on this meeting today. Jordan, do you have that one?
I don't think so. I think you have it. So
it's under the health education, it's under technology resources on that folder. But we created a document that has tons of technology resources that you can teach all of this whole unit from remote learning if you're using, like if we're virtual, right there it is. So I wanted to share this with you guys. So what we did, and they're all hyperlinked. So like these are all like vocabulary resources, and on the far right, if it's an app, that's what the app looks like to make it easier for you to find it in your app store. And this gives you tons of ideas of how you can teach all these units if you have to do it from remote learning or through Google Classroom. So you can actually teach and do a great job in the fall if it's a virtual or a hybrid situation. So we wanted to share this with you. And then if you have any ideas that you use for technology that is not on here, please let us know, because we like to keep this a live document. We can continue to add resources. Like, technology is always changing. There's always these new programs coming in and about. And I personally am not the technology guru person. It is not I'm good at it, but I'm still learning. But there's always new stuff coming out. Wanted to give this to you as a way to take everything you're learning today and actually use it as a hybrid or remote learning in the fall. And that's pretty much all that I have. Oh, what's Class Kick, Graham?
Class Kick is something that someone gave to us at like the beginning of summer, so I haven't really done a lot with it, but my understanding is you can put assignments in there and then you can see the students as they do the task. So you can put PDF that you've already got, and it can be like, I think it can be editable online, and then all the students can do it and you can see each student individually as they go through the thing. So you can kind of do feedback directly to that person as they're entering onto their forms.
Thank you. I'll add all these. I'll add the Class Kick, the ones in the chat. I'll make sure I add them all to that resource and link them all so people have access to them.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on? And Jordan, if you could give hosting to, is it Jess or Kim? Back to Jess. If there's any comments or questions, you can also put them in chat.
I'm not sure how to give hosting back.
So go up to click participants.
Gotcha.
And then do a search, and you can put Napier in or Jess, and then you should be able to.
Got it.
Great. And then Jess, when you're done, you can give it back to me, and I will host, and as Shane and I will present.
Okay, so Kim, you chime in as well, okay? Kim and I worked on, hold on here, sorry. Technology's great, huh? It can be an amazing tool for sure.
I think we're doing a really good job of sharing host and sharing screen. Trust me, I've been on many of these, and you all are doing a great job.
We're all like, whoo, palms are sweating. Now, Kim and I worked on I'm sorry. We worked on another, here we go. Analyzing influence, took me a second to find it. An analyzing influences template for middle school. And we followed the same process that each of us has described to when it comes to backward design. When it does come down here to developing lessons, okay, I always go back to the things I need to teach, make sure I've taught those. I always look at my performance assessment too, and make sure that I'm teaching the same skills and the same content that the students will be able to do in their particular performance assessment. So here's a performance assessment that Kim and I designed in order to connect analyzing influences and mental and emotional health during this particular time. So I'm just going to share this, and then there's one other resource that I'm going to share with you that I have not been able to teach health ed without here the past couple of years. And then Kim, whatever you want to add, you can add, and then we'll pass it along to the next person. So here's the performance assessment. You've more than likely received messages from media, family, school, peers, community, and from your culture regarding COVID-19. Select 3 of the sources below to explain how their messages about COVID has influenced your mental and emotional health. So we just kind of feel like students are being bombarded from the media and their family and their school and their peers, their community and their culture. So we'll give them a choice of who they want to focus on and the messages that they want to focus on from these people. Then we ask them to compare and contrast the messages that they've received. So something, you know, they may hear someone in their community say, well, we've only had 1 case in Lee County this whole time. It's not that bad. Okay, how does that compare and contrast with media they may have heard, like Jordan was talking about with the cases in Florida right now or in New York? You know, they might be receiving completely mixed messages. So we want them to be able to compare and contrast those and to be able to describe whether they're internal or external, whether they're positive or negative. So once they've analyzed those influences, then we want them to apply that information to their mental and emotional health. So the ultimate performance assessment here is you are a spokesperson for the 9th grade, 6th, I think we did this for middle school, so 7th grade class who has been asked to explain how COVID-19 has influenced the mental and emotional health of you and your peers. So using the information from part A and part B, create a video, podcast, letter, song, poem, or illustrated story to share with your school leaders. So they're just describing how the influences have affected their mental and emotional health during COVID-19. So that's the performance assessment that our unit is based on. So I want to share that, and then let me share one other resource real quick while I have you here. And this is so valuable to me, and maybe some of you other health educators too. I know it is Jo. Jo and I love content, so we have these conversations all the time, don't we, Jo? It's cool. So when you go to RMC Health, based out in Colorado, and Jess knows a lot more about them than me, she can share some information about their particular organization if you want to. What I'm going to show you are the amazing resources that they have just been updated like days ago. So if you go to their website and click on resources and tools, it'll bring you to all of these health skills models that are amazing. They are broken down by grade levels, and they include skill progressions on how to teach it. I use the self-management one for my unit at the very beginning, and I updated that one because Jess is like, oh, maybe you should update those since they just came out. And I did. I updated them with the pictures and with the content. So you can see that here's pre-K, 3-5, 6-8, 9-12. And here's all the information that they have there to help you teach that particular skill. So these are amazing. They have posters to put in your classroom. They have skill progressions for each of the steps. I use these in the self-management unit that I just taught you. Some assessment resources. And then here's a whole guide. Like all of this stuff that you see up here is in this, and it's a much more detailed document about that specific skill. Yeah, they do have amazing rubrics. They're working on those to update those, but I have used their rubrics in the past and they're very, very good. So I wanted to share that specific resource for you. Just go to rmc.org, resources and tools, and then you can scroll down to whichever health skill it is you want to incorporate. Kim, do you have anything you want to add?
I would love to, but we have to get that elementary stuff in. But I'm telling you guys, this Health Cadre is amazing. Use this stuff that they have created. It is awesome. All right, but let's get an elementary example in. Okay, awesome job.
All right, so I need to
Share it over to me.
share it over to you. I'm trying, Jess.
And while you're doing that, everyone, we were going to do breakouts. So we're using a different kind of Zoom account. And with this specific account, the breakouts weren't uploaded in and you kind of have to set them up. And then typically you can make a setting so that the sharing screen doesn't have to kind of go back and forth. So we apologize, but we aren't using my account, which I'm used to using. All right, I'm going to share the elementary school document. So Shane from Whitley County and I worked on the elementary, and I'm just gonna kind of quickly introduce it and then have him explain, and then we'll close the webinar. But I kind of circled what we were looking at. So we looked at the SHAPE document as well. What we found is that those examples around interpersonal communication, because we really wanted to do communication skills, weren't really elementary level or didn't quite fit exactly what we wanted to do. So just, again, that's where we started. So we just wanted to let you know. And then we put in some of the data as well, and we used the same template that Joe had created. So I'm gonna hand it over to Shane, and Shane, if you can just make sure that you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, using the SHAPE document there, we decided to go with managing and resolving conflict, because we feel like students have been away from school for quite a while, and you know that's a skill that, if not practiced, you know, often can be forgotten since it's been neglected. So it is interpersonal communication, as you can see there with the screen Jess is sharing. And we, in terms of assessment, we really hadn't thought of one, but you know, as we've kind of gone through this webinar, I've been thinking, you know, you could have them create a poster or a commercial or something, going over, you know, skills they could use for conflict resolution. But you know, we went over the indicators there that, you know, they would need to show about being able to listen and talk, and not keeping your feelings inside, and also social distancing with, you know, that's a new topic. I'm sure that not being at school, they're probably going to need a lot of practice at that. And if, you know, they're not good at social distancing, then we want to make sure we really enforce that wearing a mask. But we did kind of come up with a couple of lessons there. Lesson one, we talked about communication, on how to keep yourself and others healthy, both mentally and physically, and why it's important not to keep or to talk and not keep your feelings inside and let them build up. You know, we would go over terms in that first lesson that, you know, deal with interpersonal communication skills. We'd also, you know, go over the skill and demonstrating, you know, how to kind of be aware of that 6-foot area that's suggested for social distancing. Lesson two, we went on to talk about I messages, how they're good in helping with conflict resolution, you know, allowing people to know kind of what we're feeling, and also to practice attentive listening, you know, when others are demonstrating their or telling you their feelings. Lesson 3 there, we had, you know, what it means to say no to something you don't want to do or shouldn't do, with refusal skills. You know, I guess more, we're looking at, you know, the polite way to to say no and not,
Yeah.
you know, kind of be hateful about it.
Yeah.
Jess,
Shane and I were talking about that. Shane and I were like, how do you, what if someone wants to like be close to you, and then how do you kind of say no in a way that, you know, especially for elementary kids, that's something we talked about for a while. Sorry, Shane, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no,
We spent
you're
some time
fine.
talking about that. I think that's, anything else you want to add, Shane?
No, and then we also at the bottom, the main bottom of it, we had kind of a list of vocabulary words there that kind of deal with conflict and resolution.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Jess, I'm gonna have you take over again,
Okay.
put up the last few slides. Thank you, Shane, for the elementary piece too. So all of you can kind of see different examples of what we did at different levels.
Can you see it now?
I can. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to close before I send it over to Robyn, we didn't do the breakouts. We decided to kind of all present, but there is an option for us to each do a breakout. If we feel like those of you really want to see an elementary hour or a middle school hour or a high school hour for a town hall, we're happy to do that. Because of time, I'm not going to bring you to all the sites, but the KDE website, we'll share this PowerPoint slide, brings you to just more resources for health and physical education. The Shape America site is hyperlinked to all their guidance, tools, and work specifically around reopening. And today at 3 right now, they do have a webinar going on teaching practices for health ed. So if you want, jump off and register for that one. I think there was still room in there. And then our Kentucky Shape page has more virtual professional development opportunities like this one that have been recorded, and you can watch them, answer questions, and then get a certificate for your time. So that is all up as well. And any questions you have, my email's there. But Robyn, I'm gonna send it over to you to close. And thank you so much to the cadre members. You've been so amazing to work with.
Guys, that was amazing. Really impressed with the work that you guys have done. Jessica Napier, if you'll go to the next slide, I'm going to close this out here. So our next town hall on Tuesday will be about brain, body, behavior, classroom-based physical activity, and we're going to have guests on from Charlotte, North Carolina, from the CMS school system there. I used to teach there. It's a huge school district. Kim Morton and their Darren Den is going to talk about some classroom-based physical activities. So that'll be at the same time next week. You can go to our Cape Ford Home page, click on, I think it's events, and then town halls, and you can register there. In addition, that will also be where we will put the link to view this particular town hall. All the past town halls are there, so they will be there. And then the resources will be loaded to Facebook, Twitter, and all those other resources as well shortly after this. Jess, go ahead and go to the next slide. And then for those of you who are looking to get your 1 hour PD, what you will need to do is use your phone. Take your phone, put it up and scan that QR code, and that will give you your PD certificate for it. And remember, once this is posted, you can also go back to get that. Please remember, if you're in Jefferson County, that you needed to register for it so that Mimi can get your information to know that you were here, and so that she can add you into our PD Central from there. Again, I want to thank all of our presenters and our health cadre for doing an amazing, amazing job. I'm thoroughly impressed. I feel like I should switch from PE to health back into the classroom and do that. It was amazing. We do appreciate it. If there are questions, you can always contact Jess. She had her information up on the other slide. Myself, I am Robyn.Richardson 2, the number 2, at Jefferson, and you know the rest, kyschools.us. I thank everyone for being here. Make sure that you go ahead and scan your QR code for your certificate, and that will be all. And we will see you next week at 2 o'clock for our Tuesday at 2 town hall with KYSHAPE. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.
And Jess, you can just leave that up for just another second.
I will. I'm going to leave this up for a bit. And for those of you that are still on, we will figure out a way to get you the slide deck and all the materials. So we have your emails and we'll follow up with an email to you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good afternoon.
All right, I'm going to close this. We've recorded it and I did capture the chat. So I'll download that and send that to the cadre just in case there were any follow-up questions. And I'll also find out through Jamie whether we want to email participants the slide deck and the materials or whether they'll go up on the Google folder. So I have that as kind of some follow-ups.
Okay, I texted him. He said that they're going to be available on social media and things like that. So
Perfect.
He'll probably email them out too, but he said better Facebook and other social media. So they'll be available.
Awesome. Well, thanks, cadre. I'm going to jump on the SHAPE call and close this out, but we have it recorded and we'll edit out the kind of beginning piece and where we didn't start for a bit and then the end piece. So
the PE one yesterday was really good. So enjoy it.
Yeah, sounds good. Bye all.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.